The May 14th meeting of the Loudoun Water Board of Directors. Chairman Allen's out on vacation, as I'm sure many of you all have heard, so I'm filling in for him today, and also the June meeting because he's taking a lot of vacations, apparently. So our first order of business is the approval of the minutes from our April board meeting. Seconded by Mr. Bonfils. All in favor say aye. Any opposed or abstentions? That carries 6-0-3 with Mr. Kelly, Vega, and Allen absent. All right. Board member comments. Mr. Sultan, we'll go first with you.
Hours.
Thank you, Mr. Yudd.
Good afternoon to everybody, and greetings to Mr. Sultan. Good to see you. I mentioned to several folks walking in that I thought the finance committee went really good. I watched from a distance, so congratulations, Brian. Thank you, Brent, and to Chair Allen for being there. And I also thought Mark's overview was excellent, and the Alton's responses to the questions he received was really good. So I'm sure you'll pick up on some of that in your comments, but I want to say that. And that's it. Thank you.
Buffington.
Thank you. I just want to thank our staff. As always, you guys are great. So thank you very much for all the work that you do.
Bonfils.
Just a few things. Welcome. I'm glad to see you're back and healthy. I concur about the staff, and I did get to watch the presentation from Texas. Luckily, it's online, so you can do that. So that all went very well. And I wanted to thank Mark Peterson to coming to the ribbon cutting on the trail today by Luckstone. So that was pretty nice. Thank you.
Right.
Just like to say welcome back, Mr. Sultan, and also want to say hope all the mothers in the room had a wonderful Mother's Day.
Yeah, I agree with that. Welcome back, Marty. Glad you're feeling better. And also prayers and thoughts with Mr. Kelly. His wife fell and unfortunately injured herself, so that's why he's not here with us today. So we wish her a speedy recovery. And agree. A happy belated Mother's Day to all the moms out there that keep everything running and keep us all sane and so forth. So thank you for that. Yeah, Tuesday we were before the Board of Supervisors, their finance committee. Brian, Alton, Mark did a tremendous job presenting, answering questions. Terry and I were just there to just lend our moral support. We didn't talk or do anything. So really appreciate you guys doing that. The board mentioned again, just emphasizing that they would like to see us communicate early and often any future rate increases. And so, I think we'll just keep that in mind for the future. Just looking, just recently, headline inflation was at 3.8 year over year. I think we're 64 basis points up from last year with inflation. So it's a thing still happening. And I think we want to continue to raise rates in smaller increments on a more regular basis than spikes to catch up. And so, I know we're doing a rate study next year, and so we'll just, that was a good comment from the board. And again, just appreciate everybody's efforts here. It gets brought up all the time, Buddy Riser, just how many people are here in Loudoun. Hundreds of thousands of people rely on water doing its job. And then we've got 70% of the world's internet running through here as well. So who knows how many people relying on all the data centers that are functioning here in Ashburn. And, that's a result of everyone doing a fantastic job at this organization. So excellent job there. And the board acknowledged that and spoke to that. So thank you to everyone for all your continued work. All right. General Manager's report, Mr. Carnes.
Thank you. Good afternoon. A couple remarks for you today. Saturday, May 2nd marks the 18th anniversary of the first Broad Run Water Reclamation Facility effluent. So a big thank you and congratulations to the staff who operate the plant. On April 21st, the procurement team proudly represented Loudoun Water at the Launch Loudoun Procurement Division's Buyer Seller Exchange, held in partnership with Loudoun County Economic Development Committee, County of Loudoun, Loudoun County Public Schools, and the town of Leesburg. This event provided an excellent platform for Loudoun Water to connect with over 50 attendees, sharing valuable insights to government contracting opportunities and procurement process. We had the opportunity to engage directly with small business owners, answer questions, and highlight how businesses can effectively collaborate with Loudoun Water. It was a great experience to support our local procurement community and strengthen partnerships across the region. Mentioned by several of the members, we did give our annual update to supervisors on May 12th. We shared information about our financial condition, ongoing investment in projects to secure water and wastewater capacity, education and outreach initiatives, and collaborative efforts with the county staff. We did come away with a few items to follow up on and coordinate with county staff, but received good positive feedback through answer question and answer discussion. Few community activities this month. Friday, May 15th is Bike to Work Day. Going pit stop. Saturday, May 30th. Meeting in the years. 700. Committee meeting. Finally, in special schedule. Thank you.
Mr. Carnes. Jewel, do we have any public comment? All right. We have adoption of the agenda. Does anybody have any additions or things they'd like to change on the agenda? I've just learned we will be modifying this section of our meeting due to some new legislation from Richmond. I'll let John comment on later. Correct. Won't be implemented right now, but it'll be in our near future. Great. Okay, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda. Bonfils, seconded by Mr. Moody. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That passes 6-0. 6-3. All right, great. We have a light meeting today. No board committee action, no consent agenda, no action agenda, no new business. So we will go to item number 8 here, informational items. Mr. Wilburn.
Quickly, the only item I have is just to remind the board that we have a vote scheduled to elect your officer, specifically chair, vice chair, and secretary at the next meeting, which I believe is June 11th. Their terms expire June 30, so it's important to have a quorum present if we can. And the process you're familiar with, there'll be a nomination of candidates and then a decision made by motion and vote. If for any reason we don't have a quorum, they'll continue in service until we have enough members to vote. But hopefully we can do that on the 11th.
Great, thank you. We are on to monthly reports that fast. Finance summary from Sally. Questions for Sally? All right, seeing none, thank you, Sally. We will go to legislative activities update. Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, we just wanted to update that we talked a lot about these bills in the beginning, but they have been signed in the final form that we expected. So we will have moving forward limits for PFAS that can be land applied in our biosolids. These limits are well above the biosolids being produced at Broad Run right now. We have exceptional quality and will prevent those industrially contaminated biosolids from being used. And then the second bill was the PFAS monitoring in industrial sources that discharge to a PRTW. Loudon Water had already monitored those. We will just require that monitoring on an ongoing basis, but it gets reported to DEQ now so that DEQ has the data to make further decisions. So these are great progress. We're in a great position and it ended in a place that we were really happy with.
That's statewide.
Correct.
Right. Do we have any industrial PFAS happening up here in Northern Virginia? I guess you got Micron was up there at the Occoquan, maybe?
Right. So Micron is a PFAS problem for the Occoquan Reservoir, but they got their own legislation passed allowing them to set their drinking water standards on that Micron discharge. So the state really took action on that one individually from this broader legislation. And
A carve out.
yeah, but it was very specific on that source of drinking water. For Loudon Water rate, it is really the landfill that will be required to monitor, and that data will move forward. Otherwise, we don't have any other major sources.
So I was going to speak briefly to the second item on the list here, which impacts procurement and specifically capital construction projects. So this particular piece of legislation was really focused at somewhat major changes for large construction projects in the public realm. It really pertains to contractors' adherence to OSHA regulations, having a clean record in terms of labor law violations. On going forward on capital construction projects in excess of $5 million, they're really clamping down on use of independent contractors and 1099 workers. And there are a lot of notice provisions in there that are required to help protect public bodies from really overuse of that type of labor on contracts. And then really the other big part of this legislation, which was really kind of whittled down in this year's session, was a move toward more requirements for apprentice labor on construction projects. And so there's going to be a state body set up to study this a bit further, and we may see some more requirements come along, but it landed in a great place because it's going to really, the matter is going to be studied and hopefully implemented in a right size approach.
Come on, Phils.
Turning over information about water usage to the data that the data centers are using and the other utilities. I already have that data. It's called billing. We kind of know what the information is. I mean, so we're just going to provide them the billing information.
Correct. We have it for.
Yeah, we have it. Yeah.
Now
I mean,
it's going to be sort of a central kind of pull it together for all of them across the Commonwealth.
Do you know if it will be publicly posted?
I don't know that we've gotten
Those
kind of details.
There's a lot unknown with this bill. We don't know what format they want. We don't know what kind of data they want. We don't know what they're going to do with it. We just know at some point we are going to have to provide the State Water Control Board consumption data about data centers.
We don't know if they know what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
So, but
Well,
we're well prepared
yeah.
to do that. We just don't know the details yet of that.
But one utility versus, one data center versus the other would probably not like their water bill posted online. So there's some, I guess, privacy.
Let me add one thing in answer to that. One of, I think, the key pieces of this legislation that affects water authorities, including us, will be it's targeted at NDAs. So a lot of these data centers in their development process structured NDAs with the providers. And that's been a source of conflict, including litigation between people who want the information and entities like ours who may have entered into these NDAs. So the legislation's targeted, among other things, specifically at saying those types of agreements, to the extent they result in withholding water usage data, will be void. So it's an important thing. We have some of those types of NDAs. It's something that everybody's going to have to look at going forward. The idea is they want more disclosure on these issues, and they don't want NDAs or other agreements interfering with FOIA or other transparency interests.
We currently report like annual volumes from our wells and from our surface water sources, and that is, at a very high level, right? Annual total. And I think internally we anticipate what we would likely see would just be monthly totals to all data centers, really aggregated data to the State Water Control Board at this point. But we don't really know for sure, but that's what we anticipate.
Most data centers, they wouldn't be asking information for power plants or anything like that.
Believe so.
No, this legislation's targeted just at data centers, specifically that hold air permits with DEQ was how they decided to define a data center, which was another interesting wrinkle, because how are we supposed to know who has a permit with DEQ? But they'll figure it out.
Sorry, I didn't hear the word of what type of permit.
An air permit with DEQ. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Sorry,
Mr. Young.
I had a question on another piece of legislation that's in the packet referred to regarding affordable housing and the ability for folks to get credit or relief for the availability charges in general. We were briefed on that, I think, last year or the year before, and told there had to be, one of the requirements of change was a local zoning ordinance change. But I'm interested in the staff's reaction to the new legislation, because it looks like it puts it back on the locality to be able to reimburse the end user. There's also language in there that says the locality, if they have an ordinance, they could waive availability charge. And so it's almost like it's two-pronged effect there. So do you all see yourselves as totally out of it with this new legislation? Or if not, to what extent are you in it?
We've had discussions and followed this legislation through the session. We feel that keyword locality really removes the requirement from Loudon Water. And we had some questions as to the implementation of this in terms of typically home builders and developers are paying those charges as they build the residences, and how that might work with agreements they may have with the locality on affordable housing projects. We're just not entirely sure, but we don't believe that this in legislative aids and lobby support for our, like through VWWAA and our organizations we're part of, did not believe that this would directly impact water and waste authorities.
Okay. And
along with that, and this was maybe a year and a half to 2 years ago, this question had come up, not through the potential legislation, but just from some of these developments. And I had a conversation with Mr. Krobus at the county, and we just talked through this. And his response just very naturally to me was, well, if there was going to be a need for there to be relief, the county would take, they would go sort of through general fund, cover that cost. It would not be expected that it would be us as the utility. And he even kind of compared it to the county doing that, for even internally for DTCI kind of projects and covering some of those kind of costs.
And
that was at least at that time, kind of a reaction that I.
okay. And the reason I bring it up is because it looks like there's extra language in the bill that got adopted. If what we are linked to in the packet is the one that got adopted, I think it is, that gives the locality the authority to waive what would be an availability charge administered and otherwise handled by Loud and Water. So that's the part of the question that I have, that where did that come from and what does that mean to you all?
Yeah.
And it's okay
Well, I don't know, John, if you have any thoughts on that.
Fees. It's driven by the locality, which obviously has control of us. I didn't read anything in the statute that expressly said how downstream we're supposed to implement this. If by the county waiving it or the locality waiving it, or we reimbursed, or how that's addressed with us. And I don't know if staff has had any interaction with the county. I don't think you have.
I was actually just going to comment. I think you raised an important point of there oftentimes comes this sort of reconciliation process at the end of the session where we need to talk to our counterparts of the county. Last year, there was one passed on plat review times and it was applicable to the locality, but we're part of that. And
exactly. And the reason I think it's worth having the conversation big time is I don't think we want to find out downstream that somehow through that legislation, the board, the local governing board had the authority to modify, reduce, waive, make go away the fees that we charge, because that was the whole issue of our inability to be helpful with regard to incentivizing affordable housing or making it more affordable. So that's why I'm raising that question about that second part.
It's a good question. Mr. Vegas raised this issue before.
Yes.
Bill, and we looked at it for the board and did a memo. We just didn't have the authority to do it. But the locality now does, the county does. What the statute doesn't speak to is how that's implemented by us and what the economic impact, who bears that. None of that's addressed in the statute. So I don't know where it goes from here, because clearly the locality has the authority to waive those fees, I think. But I don't know how that's implemented or how we.
The locality is not the one charging the fees. The authority is charging the fees.
Yeah, there seems to be a gap in the statute. But I think it's an important question, Mr. Yod, because there'll be pressure, I assume, on the county to waive those fees. And then how do we?
How they waive them if they're not their fees? Maybe in other jurisdictions throughout the Commonwealth, the county might have the ability to be the ones to manage those fees. In other jurisdictions, does that sound at all possible? Yeah, I think
it gets into the semantics too. Sometimes they speak to locality, and it's a reference to a locality that also operates their wastewater system.
Okay,
right. There are localities that operate their own water system, and that makes sense. But in our system, it doesn't work without some additional guidance or legislation or coordination. I don't know, for example, if next month they waived availability fees on was designated low-income housing, how we process that.
Right.
I don't know that we have an answer for that.
Okay. Thank you for
We'll follow up on it.
Thank you.
Thank you for raising that, Mr. Yod. One quick final thing on this before we move on. HB 804, these housing targets. Is there any sense, this is this 7.5% over 5 years requirement for localities in Virginia to increase their housing stock. do we feel like that will have any meaningful impact on the number of homes and tap fees and so forth that we might be experiencing in the coming years? Or does this just feel like some lofty language here, some aspiration? There's no penalties, I assume, if a locality doesn't meet these targets. There's so many targets that get put out there that we go, well, we're way short of our targets. Oh, well. So does this have any effect on us, or is it like, nah, don't think it really does?
Oh, I'm not sure on this one.
I mean, I'm kind of quickly referencing back to Sally's pie chart. We are collecting, significant availability charges still for housing. And if that were to increase 7.5%, I think it's meaningful.
I mean, I think there's 150,000 homes in the county, just as a general idea there. And we got about 450,000 people. So 7.5% of that's not small. And so if Loudoun were to actually take this legislation seriously and actually be increasing the supply of houses by 7.5%, that could be meaningful in terms of the number of new users that we're having to facilitate. So it'd be interesting, but this isn't the first time the state's passed legislation trying to get localities to approve new housing. And, some of that legislation doesn't have any real effect. So I haven't read the actual language in the bill itself, but it'd be interesting to understand if we anticipate as we're forecasting out our year Cs for next year and the following year, if we think that this might have an impact, or if it's like, probably not.
Yeah, two things. One, I don't think there was any penalty associated with it. So I think it has an indirect impact in terms of our ability to serve if this 7.5% is achieved. But I got to double check whether it was actually passed. I thought it was withdrawn. I'll double. Yeah, I thought it was withdrawn. I don't know that it passed, but it was something that was kicked around. But I did look at the language, and there was nothing in it that imposed either an affirmative obligation on us or a penalty. I think it was.
Okay. And I didn't read this right. I saw passed House, but it didn't actually get adopted.
I'm pretty sure it did not.
Yeah. You get when you get the second string quarterback. All right. Next, we've got Water Resources Management Monthly Report. Jessica Edwards Brandt and Kinsey Downs.
Hey. Good afternoon. Okay, I will go through the Central System Water Resources Report. Get to the next slide. So a little more green than you probably thought you would see for April. It was an optimistic April. So I'll go through each of these. So Potomac River, it is lower than normal. It is still flowing above the 2000 CFS. So that's why it just stayed green for the time being. As you can see here in the historical reference of the flows, it has dropped to below normal levels. And then the Potomac Basin precipitation, I look at it over a period of 12 months. That kind of is a little bit more of a happier outlook. So it did end up in the normal status. However, ICPRB looks at it as from 180 days of observed precipitation and the departure from that average. And so theirs is a little bit more cautionary, right? And then they just released a news update, ICPRB today, and they looked at it over 30 days. Actually, Mr. Bonfels, you probably saw this, and it was red. So I think it just depends on how you're looking at it. I look at it over 365 days, so it fell into the normal category. I think next month it will look different. Regionally, ICPRB has started their monthly outlook report. This is where they use their modeling to predict what the flows in the upstream reservoir, or what the Potomac flows look like, and what the upstream reservoirs look like. And in April, their outlook said that there was a 14 to 21% chance that we will need to release from, or we will ask the upstream reservoirs to release water because of low flow at Little Falls. There is a COG regional Drought Technical Committee meeting in early June. And I expect that at that meeting, we will probably move to a regional drought watch. So that's why it's a watch on the status table. But Goose Creek and Beaver Dam Reservoir all looking good. We did do a maintenance run at Goose Creek earlier in April, and that all went well. And that is my last slide. Any questions?
The last time Randolph Jennings.
Yeah, I think 2010, right, was the last time.
I think we've talked about this before, but it may have been a while. So there's one big reservoir and there's 3 categories of storage: recreation, water supply, and water quality. And it's just broken up into percentage. And so they do recreation releases on an occasional basis, depending on time of year. They do water quality releases at different levels almost daily. So it's the water supply category that hadn't hit the triggers to be released. But that doesn't mean there's been releases. So it gets a little bit complicated in that way. But
My question wasn't very articulate, is what you're saying, which you're correct. Thank you for that. So it's been 16 years since it was released
as water
supply concerns.
Correct.
Okay, wow.
It's a long time, yeah.
Any other questions for Jessica? Lindsay.
Good afternoon. I'm going to echo Jessica here. The name of the game is rain, and we have been trending less than our yearly average naturally. So I'm going to bring some things forward for the board, but generally our messaging is the same as previous months. So regionally right now, for considering drought, we are in severe drought for the entire county, and the state has upgraded their warning for the region to be under warning. It was watch last month. Keeping in mind that those have kind of gone down a level. We've remained the same. We are normal for most of our systems, with the Raspberry Falls Summer State system being in watch, mainly for the Raspberry Wells. We did see a slight increase in performance with some of the rain we got this year. We're just kind of being a little conservative as we kind of go into the warmer seasons and increased usage. With that being said, we continue to do our best to practice messaging and kind of keep a conservation tone in mind when talking to our residents and our customers. I address any questions from the board.
You use the slide all the time of community systems, and it lists the Beacon Hill, Creighton, Elysian, et cetera. Aren't there other, you may not call them community systems, but other groundwater-based wells that you manage throughout the rural area? And what do you see when you observe their performance? And should that be added in here so we get a bigger, wider picture of well performance for systems that we're involved in?
Great question. I'm going to two-phase you on this one. We do manage some, I guess, small systems for the county, all their single well sites. Some of them are fire departments, some are community centers. Think Luckett's, think Bluemont. Right now, they are not enrolled into our groundwater monitoring program. So we don't have traditional monitoring on those wells. Naturally, if they start pumping dirty water or if there's a loss of water, we work closely with the county to get that resolved quickly. That has not happened since we started doing this report in this format. The second part of that is the county is looking to kind of advance a Western Loudoun groundwater monitoring program. And we imagine a lot of those wells will be rolled into that program just because they're great, easy spots for us to start tracking.
Question, Mr. Young. And is there any further updates on that Western Loudoun? Not just the progress. I know conversations are ongoing, and is that really just where it's at the moment?
Yeah, I think there's some finalizing the contract to move it forward. They've got money in the budget, so it did not have to go to the board for an approval this year. So it's moving ahead pretty quickly. I think they're finalizing that contract.
Meaning that the scope is being finalized?
Yeah.
Okay. And then it'll go out to bid to get,
No, no, no. They're actually working with, I mean, I think it's with,
Through us to get to Emery and Garrett.
yeah, with Emery and Garrett. So, yeah.
That's specific to the groundwater monitoring program. The other study, the rural towns, we're working through different procurement options with that right now. And we're meeting with county staff next week. So that continues to be worked through at this time.
those are actually separate efforts then.
They are separate, distinct efforts. Yes. Yes.
I had collapsed them in my mind. So thank you for clarifying that. That's helpful. Any other questions for Kinsey? Thank you very much, Jessica and Kinsey. Water and sewer agreements, Huitran.
Afternoon, board. Last month, there was really nothing for the note. Everything was pretty standard operational business. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tran. Quarterly reports, Savita Schlesinger. Did I say that right?
Schlesinger.
Schlesinger, thank you.
All right, I have the quarterly report for the BOAs. Right now we have 102 task orders, 91 are active and 11 are going to be closed among our 10 BOA firms. The total value committed is almost $24.5 million, of which we've paid almost $9 million to date. In the first quarter of this year, we paid about just under $1 million to our BOA firms. All of our projects are currently within budget. And some notable projects for this quarter, we issued 10 new task orders totaling $4 million. And the three most significant ones were a CA services contract for our ammonia removal project to Black and Beach, a design task order for Paonian Springs, the water and wastewater system designs for almost $1.8 million. And then some work for Hazen on the Oasis model. Any questions?
Questions for Savita? No?
Oh, seems to be working well.
Thank you, Savita. That's great. Land development activity quarterly report, Hui.
Good afternoon, board. The last quarterly report, I had mentioned that we were going to kind of refresh and kind of update this report. Unfortunately, Mr. Vega is not here. But on the previous report, the first page had ERCs, and we elected to kind of remove that. Sally does a great job reporting on the ERCs, and so it was a little bit of redundant information, so we removed that page. So kind of the first page of this is very similar to the graphs that you all are familiar with. And this shows county referrals, first plan submissions, plans approved, and construction permits over the last 4 years. So you can kind of see on a bigger scale any trends or anything. For this particular quarter, you can see that first plan submissions were lower for this quarter, but then construction permits were significantly increased. On the second page, this is a new graphs that we've added, and this is a little bit more detailed information, and it shows first submissions and construction permits by development type. It only looks at, the last year or so or the last 4 quarters. And so this is, I think, to address one of Mr. Yudd's questions about looking at trends based on development type. And so for this quarter, you can see that first submissions, we received no new data center submissions in the last quarter. However, construction permits, you can see that the activity of data centers still remains high, as well as commercial. And as we move into the maps, really, this is, again, more detailed information. It shows that the graphs show the same information, but this tells you where in the county that the development is occurring. So again, you start from the first page a little bit more general, then you move into more specific as you get into the report. So. And this is kind of the new format that we'll be presenting on the quarterly report. And so I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
I don't have a question. I just think it's very helpful the way you broke it out. And it starts to really establish that trend for us to be able to see what is happening and what's incoming right now. And I think if I don't know if my colleagues agree with me after y'all looked at it, but it does sort of point out that the first submission of the data center site plans are trickling off. And we've been talking about that for a while, at least in Finance Committee, relative to so many other things. But I think this is super helpful. And then if you were just to take a high level look and say, from the indication in quarter X that you're not getting first submissions, to then seeing a spike or steady traffic in construction permits, when will that construction permit level drop commensurate with the indicator of no first submission data center? Is that a year or is that 2 years? And not to force an answer, it's 1 or 2 years. What do you think it is?
I think it's probably about a year. Yeah.
That seems to be reasonable, depending on the amount of submissions you go through to get done with your plan review to get to the permit stage. But I appreciate that. Very, very, very well done.
Wanted to briefly mention, if I may, somewhat unrelated, but we continue to engage with the industry, NDVIA, NAIOP, and others. WeTran, Leslie Plazio, our entire construction services group, on continuing to catch up and work on the speed at which we get submissions out. I know we've put some new policies and things in place, and I understand like some of the most recent calls with the industry. We've received a lot of positive feedback on some of those things that have been implemented. So I just wanted to acknowledge that again. I know Mr. Vega is not here today, but I think he typically listens in on those calls as well. And wanted to share some positive news on the front.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, ERCs are coming after the construction permits are approved. Is that generally when we see those show up?
That's correct. So, I mean, with the larger increase of construction permits this quarter, we should be expecting, those ERCs to come in later on this year.
Mr. Yutt's point about the first submission site plans, that's probably a year in advance. So a year from now, we'll start to see the lack of new data center ERCs potentially. That's where we would start to see that hit our revenue.
Potentially.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, really great report. Super helpful. It's great to have the maps too. Very, very helpful. I love it. So thank you. And thank you for Mr. Yad suggesting or asking the question. Any other questions for we on this? Move on. Right. Thank you, Mr. Tran. Next is operations and maintenance quarterly reports. Kendra.
Yes, if somebody could scroll to the top of this one for me. So we have 2 issues to note that occurred in our operating system. So the first violation that we received was on the reclaimed water system. This was due to routine flushing of the distribution system. We have a dechlorination device that failed, which we then properly reported and resulted in us discharging above our permitted chlorine discharge limit of those flushing activities. This is one that we felt was a minor violation, and DEQ decided to proceed with an assessment anyway.
And this is chlorine going into the purple line into the reclaim.
Correct. It's just meant to prevent biological growth in our piping system.
Nobody's drinking it.
Yeah.
It's in the reclaimed pipe, so.
Correct.
And it's not being discharged into the Broad Run.
No, this was just flushing of the distribution system, right? So it was flushed onto the road. because they have given us uniquely to anyone else in the state a permitted limit. When we flush these hydrants, we have to dechlorinate to a certain level. There's really not a technical basis for it. They like to treat reclaimed water like it's a hazardous substance. Our second issue was really an administrative issue that we got assessed on the Goose Creek pump station replacement. We moved ahead with the installation of larger pumps due to the increased growth in the JLMA. We saw an opportunity to install some capacity and did not update our paperwork with DEQ in a timely manner. So we had to get that updated, that we were putting that, actually installing that extra capacity. So we got it in and they just gave us a small violation in the meantime.
Thank you, folks. Thanks. What, the Goose Creek pump, what's the pump?
Well, this is the community system that we are now bypassing into central system, which we've already connected, but it's really imperative that we get extra pumping capacity in there now to get us through, because it's just interim, to support the growth in the meantime. But capacities, I don't remember. Do you remember?
Currently billing like 350. Then it's gonna be, the extra pump costs a half a MGD.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for explaining those. Any other questions for Kendra? Okay, moving on, safety results, Lenny McDonald. Yeah, still great. You guys are awesome. Okay, that concludes our quarterly reports. I don't think we have a closed meeting. So I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Mr. Bonfils, do we have a second? Mr. Moody, all in favor, say aye. We are adjourned. Have a great Memorial Day, everyone, and we'll see you back in June.
You out of trouble? That's what he said. Is what he said.